Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining me today on Wellness Wednesday. I'm Dr. Misty Kosciuszko, and today we're going to talk about which microbes in our gut are actually potentially increasing our levels of anxiety and stress, and which ones that we can actually replace it with, and how to help get rid of those microbes and reduce our anxiety levels. So do me a favor, if you like this video and this helps you, give me a big thumbs up, click that love button, or share with your friends so that they can gain from this knowledge as well. This is not something that's going to be typically out there in the medical community right now. So this is more informative for you to help yourself. And these are things for you to provide better health for yourself. So let's talk a little bit about what the gut is and the microbiome. Okay, so the gut is typically the digestive system, but this is a really interesting fact, actually. So we have about 100 billion cells in our body, and we actually have about 1 trillion bacterial cells throughout our body and within our microbiome. So we actually have like 10 times the amount of microbial DNA versus our DNA. We are outnumbered 10 times, which is amazing. And that makes you think like how important our microbiome is, because and how it needs to be managed, because it plays such a big role in our health. Our microbiome in our GI tract consists of mostly, digestion, breaking down of food. But when we talk about like the small intestine and the large intestine, we're talking about areas of our intestines that are filled with specifically and supposedly good commensal bacteria, which is very, very important for vibrant health. They have so many different roles. They have helped in protecting our GI tract and helping produce short chain fatty acids that actually heal and seal our GI tract. They help with vitamin production. They actually help in production of neurotransmitters, as well as your GI tract. Now, all of us have this one nerve, it's a cranial nerve called the vagus nerve, that exits from the bottom of our skull and actually attaches to our gut and our nervous system. So the gut-brain connection is really big. And so some of the signaling that's happening from our microbiome and some of the bacteria is actually stimulating the vagus nerve, believe it or not. And so it's very, very attached. That gut-brain connection can be really big. I remember times in my healing journey where my fatigue, like anxiety and depression, would be way worse during times of like when my gut was upset. It's having healed that now. Yes, there is anxiety level from other things, but it's certainly like that plays a huge role in your health. So let's get into that a little bit. So 2 strains that really, there's a couple different strains. One of them is actually Clostridium. So specific strains of Clostridium, typically, I mean, if you are somebody with these types of symptoms, the only way to be able to tell this is to be able to do an in-depth comprehensive gastrointestinal stool test or an organic acid test. These are the tests that I typically use with functional medicine patients that I work with to check for those specific strains of bacteria, especially if they have a history of any sort of mental health challenges or anxiety and depression, panic attacks. And this is actually a really big one for moms with kids with autism or SPD, like anything of that, like sensory ADHD. We want to actually look for Clostridium because that can absolutely be creating more of issues. And so what Clostridium does is it actually inhibits our body from creating a transmission from dopamine, which is a really happy neurotransmitter, into noradrenaline. So what that does is it amps up the levels of dopamine, like the dopamine can't get broken down. And so what you have is actually high levels of dopamine unable to be converted. And so that can in itself create problems, can create anxiety. In some levels, it can actually create more aggression, even levels of like schizophrenia and things like that. There's in severe cases, but the bacteria can actually create a lot of those problems, which is just amazing that there can be something so simple to be able to be fixed to reduce. Imagine if you are struggling from that yourself, like high levels of aggression or irritability, things like that, and then being able to bring that down. That's by this one little piece that's being missed, right? How many people have kids, and this for me was a huge stressor on my life, was having and not because it's anybody's fault, but certain things that were going on with my daughter, who's been experiencing some sensory challenge and things like that. Like once we started doing more gut cleanup and more inflammatory modulation and things like that, we started to see a lot more differences in her ability to calm herself and not get that amped up. So this really, this is a big thing. Some of the other levels of bacteria that could be also possibly pathogenic, as well as there's all different types of strains to these bacteria, but these are ones that can increase those levels of anxiety. Okay, so Aspergillus, Staph aureus, Listeria, Saccharomyces, and then there's also specific parasites and yeast overgrowth. Parasites can be huge with anxiety, and especially aggression and everything with kids like that. So just so you know, like this plays a big role in your health. Okay, so the reason why we want to these pathogenic bacteria, how can I get rid of it? Oh, can you guys hear me okay? Oh, sorry about that. Disconnected for a second. So how can I get more good bacteria going? And then is there a way to balance that? Absolutely. So there's really, most of this can be managed with a couple, it doesn't even have to be antibiotics or anything like that. And the problem could have actually happened from a numerous amount of antibiotics being, happening throughout your life. So one thing that I would highly suggest would be taking a probiotic with lactobacillus and bifidobacter. So there's two specific strains, bifidobacter longum and lactobacillus, I can't remember how to say it. Where did I write it down? Helveticus. Okay, thank you. Lactobacillus helveticus and bifidobacter longum are the ones that are the most helpful in research that help to decrease anxiety. They can do that by increasing levels of GABA in our brain. That is a neurotransmitter in your central nervous system that actually inhibits those impulses. So that excitation of those nerves going off, GABA is really great. So those two strains will help to produce GABA, as well as levels, again, of those neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, that can all be produced in your GI tract. This is why gut health is so important for us. So, if you are somebody who's been struggling, one thing you can do is go ahead and get a probiotic with those two strains in it. Okay, so the lactobacillus helveticus and bifidobacter longum. If you get those, usually you want at least 15 billion organisms. I would highly recommend there's specific ones that I can recommend. I can put it in the comments below if you guys want that link on where you can get those. You really want to get ones. This is not one of those things where probiotics, you don't want to go to an over-the-counter store, and have just buy anything off the shelf. They really need to be in a specific amount, at least 15 billion organisms, if not higher, to be able to have a really good therapeutic dose. You want them typically refrigerated, and you want, if possible, to have one with something called FOS, which is fructose oligosaccharide. So that helps the good bacteria flourish. Okay, so in conjunction with that, a great thing to take is actually oregano oil capsules. So oregano is an amazing antimicrobial, viral, like this is going to help with knocking out any of those type of microbes that we mentioned being problematic. Okay, so oregano oil, 2 capsules of oregano oil, or you can split them up, one in the morning, one in the afternoon or evening. They make them in capsules already, or you can do use essential oils, and you can either use them kind of dwindled down. Oregano oil is really strong, so you definitely don't want to just ingest oregano oil. You want to bring it down with, dilute it with some fractionated coconut oil. You can put it in some little veggie capsules, ingest it that way, use it with cooking. Any of those is great to help, and garlic as well. Great antimicrobial. Those are going to help bring down those pathogenic bacteria, and then replacing those bacteria with those strains of lactobacillus and bifidobacter are going to give you a lot more chances of having a healthier, healthy levels of calming. It's going to give you more sense of peace. And that is a great way, even if you don't have a test and you have anxiety, great way to just go out and test, see if that helps you. If you are somebody who's tried every single anti-anxiety on the market, you're stressed out, it's not working, there's so much more to it. And this is one of those pieces that, again, gets missed in the medical world, because medical world, you're typically having, either, okay, go to a psychiatrist or psychologist for counseling, here's the medication. That's standard protocol for good medical practice. Unfortunately, what that does is, yes, it can help manage the symptoms, but it's not addressing that root cause, okay? And obviously there are many pieces to this, but on a physiological level, this is definitely one of the puzzle pieces, okay? So again, I'm Dr. Misty Kosciuszko. Thank you so much for joining me on Wellness Wednesday. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, share with your friends, and I will see you next week. Anything that you guys need, comment below. And I'm happy to share my dispensary for you guys. If you guys want to get some of those probiotics, I have some of the best brands that are the most therapeutic. So I'm happy to provide that for you. And I hope this was valuable for you. Thank you so much for watching.